Thank you for joining us for this month's installment of Tips and Tricks. Today we'll be given a little insight into calls to action by our digital strategy manager, Stephen Edelman. On this call, we have designers, developers, marketing specialists, and project managers, so we should have you covered. So, Steve, take it away.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say something, huh? So, on these meetings, we try to talk about some of the best practices that you can do and some of the things that ways that you can not only increase traffic to the website, but more importantly, convert, because your website needs to be kind of like a digital calling card, if you will. It should be a branding tool, but it should also be a money generating tool for you. It should be a way for you to get more leads or whatever your KPI is, your key performance indicator is. And so if it's set up right, it's going to be engaging and it's going to have a lot of great content, and you're going to get picked up organically by Google. But Matt and I actually had a discussion about this just the other day. Content is king and it's great, but the ultimate emperor is often tracking, and you have to be able to track what it is you're doing. So in past trainings, we've talked about how to set up the Google Tag Manager so you can track fire off conversions and things like that. But we, as Eric, Matt, and I were talking about this month's subject, we realized that before you can track something, you have to have something to track. So one of the common, I won't say mistakes, but I think missed opportunities that we find a lot of our clients run into is they'll build out this huge piece of content that's beautiful. It's got links in it. It's got the right headers so that the hierarchy is good. H2, H3 hierarchy is good. So it's easy to read. It's engaging. And Google Analytics tells them after they post it that people are spending time on it. There's good cross links in there. So it's going to other pieces of content on the website. Maybe there's even a video embedded. So it's a very engaging piece of content, which is fantastic. The issue that we run into or that we see happen is that at the end of it, people just go, oh, cool, good to know. And then they bounce. They go do whatever else they were doing with their day. So the easiest thing to overlook is telling people what's next. Remembering to tell people what you'd like them to do with the information you've just provided. So if you write a great blog or you make a great page, if it has all kinds of great information, if the only purpose of that piece was to engage them with entertainment and information, that sort of thing, then you've done your job. And that's fantastic. And if they leave, then hopefully if they ever use that knowledge, they'll remember you. There's a bit of brand awareness there. Good to go. However, that's not always the case. It's usually not the case. Usually what you want them to do is contact you. So having a solid call to action at the bottom of your page is going to, or at the bottom of whatever piece of content, at the end of whatever piece of content, is going to take it to the next level. And that call to action should be consistent. It should be similar, because we humans, as complex as we are psychologically speaking, and as unique as we are, we're all creatures of habit. And when we start to see things, we start to remember them. And when we retain that, then we start expecting it. So let me give you an example here. We have a client. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what it is we're talking about. We have quite a few clients, but this is one of the clients that we work with. It's Miller Law, and it's a bankruptcy attorney. And one of the things that we've started doing is on every single page, we've been helping them add this call to action. So it's a two-piece call to action. The content on this page right here, it's got a little header that speaks to this piece of content, whatever that is. So the header, even though the style will be exactly the same on any page you go to, the content will be unique to that page. Ultimately, the button is they want people to call for a free consultation. So that's the button that's going to be on every page. But they also, there's a lot to be said for social proof, which is testimonials. So they want to make sure that people have access to the testimonials, so that's on there as well. So if everything is done right on here, or they read a couple pieces of content on the bottom, even though it's up here too, there's a bankruptcy evaluation button, most people skim right over that and they forget that it's there. So having it at the bottom of the page is a good reminder that, hey, this is the next thing. And any page that you go to on this website should, if we've done our job right, have a similar call to action. So instead of about chapter 7, it talks about foreclosures and repossession. Exact same styling, everything looks the same. And each of these buttons can be tracked in Google Analytics by setting up the Google Tag Manager. So then you can see which buttons are firing. And if you notice that on certain pages, people are it's firing right away. So for example, here's a great example. This is a short piece of content. It's got a video embedded in here, so that's going to increase the amount of time that somebody's on this page. There are some good cross links, and then there's the call to action. Now, if this page has, for example, a high time on the page, it's likely because they're watching the video. If people are clicking this, then it tells us that the call to action is good and the amount of content on this page is good. However, if somebody's on this page, to contrast that a little bit and compare it, if somebody's on this page, yes, it has a video, but there's a lot more textual content here and a lot of other links. So if people aren't getting here, then maybe the problem is that we have all these other links, so they're getting drawn off that page before they get a chance to click on it. So calls to action are important not only because they remind your website visitors what it is you want them to do next, but it shows you what pieces of your content are most effective and efficient and what are doing what you want them to do. If you don't have that, then if you're not tracking that, then you're shooting in the dark and you're missing out on a good competitive advantage, because if you check any of your competitors' websites, they all have different calls to action that meet whatever those needs are. So this is just one example. Another great example that we use quite often when we're talking about this is Electric Ease. Electric Ease is an electrical estimating software designed for electrical contractors. Their big thing is to schedule a free demo. And so what they have is on their main landing page, there's a few different calls to action, but it's because it's an introductory page. However, the electrical estimating software page, which goes into more in depth, has been designed specifically to mimic a lot of what competitors have in terms of content, but highlight their specific competitive advantages. At the bottom, you'll notice these calls to action. Because they want to talk about the different membership levels, we have a little bit more content built out here. Same call to action buttons. It's always going to be this style, see pricing and free demo. And it's always going to have this kind of style classing in it as well. So again, no matter what page we go on to, if I go to the difference, it should have similar call to action, unique to the page, but the same button class styles. Now, the two, I realized just now that both the Miller Law one and this one have the block quote text, so the style is similar, but you'll notice that the calls to action are different, and that's the important thing. Now, this call to action advice that we're giving right now is not just about it's not just about website content. Any piece of content you put out should have solid calls to action. So, for example, on Facebook, you can post a picture with a link back to your website, and that's going to be great. Except when they click on the picture, it doesn't necessarily open to the website, it blows that picture up. Well, if you know how to do it, you can set that up specifically so that when people click on that picture to see it closer, it brings them to a page on your website. That is the call to action. Contact us today for this, for that. That's why the ads have a solid call to action. I mean, if an ad isn't doing well, it's because the call to action isn't clear enough. So it's a very, very valuable tool to use. It's an important tool to use, and even on YouTube content. So with our blogs, we do something very similar. This is the latest blog that Jen, who is on this call, she's actually one of our latest, newest members, newest employees and team members. She actually came up with this specifically for this training so that you guys could see firsthand, best practices and tips specifically about calls to action, how it should work, what you can do with it. And you'll notice at the bottom we have two separate calls to action, but they're very specific. One is to get a consultation. The other is to see what our other services are. So you got to practice what you preach. You'll notice these are on most of our blogs, if not all of them, and on most of the pages of our website. After this meeting is over, we actually record these, and we've been sharing them to YouTube and then also to Facebook. So an edited video of this training will actually be embedded in this blog as well. So it's a lot of best practices that all do the same thing, which is hopefully, if done right, drive action. We can go into further in depth with that, and we're happy to answer any questions that you guys have about it. But ultimately, the idea is that if you have real questions that you want to get into and you want to know what strategy is best for you, you're going to call us for that free consultation, or see how we can help in that way. And that's really what the call to action for this specific type of content is all about. And oh, I just realized I don't know if I lost Matt. I was going to look at his picture. There he is. Matt, you still on, right?
I am.
Okay, there you are. You freaked me out. I was like, we lost him. So I think you and I had talked a little bit about the analytics side of it and how, when they're done right, these can be really powerful. We got a few more minutes before the Q&A section. Do you want to talk about that a little?
I can. You can. Yeah, let me take over the screen. I'm sorry I was not ready for you to.
Sorry, not a very good segue.
Stephen, it's my due.
Hi.
Hi, I have a question. So how do you set up this block, for example, on my blog? Can I do that by myself, or do I have to pay you guys to do it?
You can do it yourself. It should have been built into the design process.
Okay.
When your website was redesigned, there's different style classes that have been set up. Eric will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, because he has his hands pretty deep in the design process. But all of the site viz clients have style classes assigned. And so any link on your website can be turned into a button technically. Now, this doesn't mean go crazy and do it. That would look very gaudy and it's not a great idea. But when you do it right, there's in the advanced settings, you can you click on advanced and then you can see where it says to. I'm sure, I don't know if Matt, I saw that smile on your face. Do you have a
No, I'm trying to get into Alexi's no, it's me. I'm
okay.
smiling at my
So
face.
while he's doing that, I tell you what, let me see if I can just kind of show you on.
Yeah, that'd be great,
the back
because
end of one of them.
I don't think there's any style setting in mine.
There is. You just don't know where it is.
That's true.
Yep, there is. So if I go to, so for example, I'll just do here. If I go to globalreach.com/blog, on the front end of the website, on the latest blog that we did, we've got these buttons at the bottom. And if you look at this is what it looks like on the actual back end. So at the bottom of it, I'm going to open this up so we can see it a little closer. At the bottom of it, it looks very different. You see how this looks like regular links versus this? So the way we have this set up is this right here is an H2 heading. This is also an H2 heading. This is a simple link, but when you double click on it, it's set up in a certain way. First off, it's set to open in a new window. So by clicking on target and going new window blank, it'll open in a new window. That way it doesn't impact the bounce rate negatively. Then by clicking advanced, and in this style sheet class, you can either do primary or secondary. And primary is usually a button that will do this. See how it changes colors a little bit there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Secondary is usually one that is a little more, it's usually just one color. But just the word primary in lowercase, nothing more, nothing less, is enough to change that into a button. Now, with any page, what I recommend most is that you test it first. So
Can you change that to secondary so they can see the difference between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I put this in secondary, in fact, I wonder if that other button wasn't already secondary. Let's find out.
No.
No, okay, cool. All right, so this one is primary, this one is secondary. So if I hit save, I can't preview this because it's a blog, but if I hit save and then I come in here and refresh this page, see the difference? So this is our primary button.
To elaborate a little more, like when you hover over it, it's going off, it's doing different colors per button.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing is to make sure you don't have formatting on it. So you don't have H1 or H2 or a heading on it, and just use the paragraph so it uses the CSS format.
So what he's talking about is this right here. See how this says format? Well, it'll automatically change no matter where you're at. So even though this is H2, these will be normal. They'll be set to normal. On the back side of this, I don't know, some people, this is a skill level thing, but on the back side of this, you can see the HTML coding. And the HR / is what creates that line that was there. And then it talks about the different style classes that have been set up for it. So it's going to vary depending on how your design was set up when we did your website. And obviously, this functionality is not the same on a WordPress site. So if you have a WordPress website, there are ways to make your call to action pop. Sometimes it's as simple as adding a block quote. So, if I did this and then put a block quote on here, and then change this back to primary.
So, Stephen, can you send me what do you guys do, like little screen shots of this, like go here, do this, so I remember, because otherwise it's sounding like too much information right now. I'm not gonna
You'll have
remember
after this is done, you'll have a full copy of the video too, so you'll be able to go back and just follow step by step. And I also just in the meeting chat, I just sent the two. It'll be primary and secondary that you use in that section. Those are the two terms that you'll have to use in that section to make the buttons change from different looks.
So Matt, that's going a lot very fast. Whereas if I have this little screen shots, then I can just say, okay, let me see what I have to do, and I can just play with it, and that is super helpful.
Yeah.
Yes. So what I might end up doing is doing some screen grabs and just adding them to that blog. So that way everybody on here can see it as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about these training sessions is that they were originally set up to be site viz training sessions, not just digital marketing. So anytime that we can show you how to do that stuff, it's definitely helpful. I also noticed I promised Matt I did say I would let you take it before I will in just a sec. You need to ask that I demonstrate what the block quote does. Now, block quote is different for each person. It's also based on design. Some people didn't set up a block quote at all, so it does nothing when you click on it. And when that's the case, we try to get back with our developers and design team to say, let's see if we can figure something out there. That's a rare thing, but it has happened. So this right here is an example of block quote. An effective call to action, blah, 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 blah. The extra stuff that is in here is that it has been bolded and italicized for extra emphasis. So when we look at that on the front end, this is what that looks like. Now, if, for example, I did not have it italicized or bolded, and I save it, and I'll show you what it would do. It's like that. So basically, it pumps it up a little bit in size and then offsets it with this little thing to make it pop out. I use block quote, and I recommend for copywriting using block quote to break up content. You'll notice that everything, anybody on this call or anybody who's been in a consulting session with me, especially if it's about SEO copywriting, has heard me say many times, 3 to 5 lines of text and then a break is usually a good idea, just because people get reader fatigue. So an easy way to break that up is with either an image, a video, or block quote. So when I say block quote, and I realize I've mentioned it quite a few times now, believe it or not, it's insanely simple to turn something into block quote. And it's literally just clicking this little quotation button on whatever paragraph you're on. So in this case, it already had block quote selected, and I had, as a style choice for this blog itself and to make that quote pop, I had it bold and italicized. But if I turn off block quote, then that just becomes the same size as it was before, using the normal style there, the normal text style. And it doesn't have this little pop out part right here. So it's basically designed to differentiate something else. Calls to action in block quote really go well too. So with that Miller Law demonstration that I was providing earlier, there was that is in block quote because it changes a lot of how things sit on the page. So yeah, that's the power of block quote, and it's shouldn't be overused, but it's a good way to make things pop out and grab attention. So hopefully that addresses that question. Matt, go ahead.
Okay, and to utilize this in Google Analytics, you would go to behavior events overview, and it just gives you new options once you start tracking those from our past meeting from Google Tag Manager. I guess I should have started with that. This is how I got these numbers in there. I took Steve, Josie, any of our digital marketing people would come to me and say they did certain buttons or different call to actions on the lower parts of websites, I would go back to Google Tag Manager and I would track them. So this button right here is from this website, from the buttons they made. So you could come in your Google Analytics and look exactly what, as long as you name them properly, what page they're going from, what page they're is. So all these buttons, now we could tell, now the owner of this website could do a proper analysis on what pages are not performing well. What pages, like this one, the features page, it's got 1 click compared to the electrical estimating software page. That's 5 clicks. Well, this page might need looked at on the content. That means people might not be scrolling to the bottom of the page. Or if there's not a page on this at all that you have on your website, that should be a concern also. So this just gives you in-depth, allows you to know what your users are doing on your website. So it kind of gives you information on what to edit or this is how I guide the digital marketing department. I look at this data and I say, hey guys, this page isn't doing well, or this section isn't doing well. Let's update it. And this is how I do that, through the analytics part, just to see what's happening where. Same thing with, again, everything can be tracked with Google Tag Manager. I have scroll set up for these people. So if somebody scrolls on the page, we can tell if they went 25, 50, 75, or 100% on the page. So they got to go 100% to get to that CTA at the bottom. If they're only going to 25%, there's something wrong with the content, which Steve explained how to break that up. And that'll help with any issues of reader fatigue. If people are only getting down 3 sentences and leaving, there's something wrong with those 3 sentences because you're not catching their eye.
This is a really, really deep, thank you very much, Matt. This is a very deep conversation, and the purpose of this part of it was to introduce you to the value of adding calls to action on the website specifically, because that is a very good starting point. That's like a 101 bare minimum. You want to have good calls to action, but once you've done that and you start getting leads, you want to know where they're coming from. You want to know if you're going to pay for ads, don't you want to send them to pages that are proven to convert? The answer is yes, by the way. that was a very hypothetical question, but a rhetorical question rather. But the whole point of these call to actions is to get them to do something. So you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're asking them to do, they're doing. And to that point that Matt just made, if they're only going 25% of the way down the page, but the keyword that they're landing on to get there, because you can find that in Google Analytics, is 75% of the way down the page, and it might be ranking in Google for that word. But if they're not even seeing that content because they're getting through the call to action and they're leaving the page or whatever, then how valuable is that content at the bottom? Should it be deleted? Should you move your call to action higher up on the page? You know, there's a lot to evaluate, and that's where our team comes in. If you ever have questions about the content that is on your website and how you can convert better, I've had a lot of people, even people on this call, who have paid for one-off consulting sessions, not just like a quick free tips and tricks, but like a full-on consulting session. And I have yet to hear anybody say that they were disappointed in those, because we try to provide a lot of value in that time.
A little bit. So thank you, everybody, for Lisa and Madhu. I think you're the only 2 left, but thank you very much, both of you, for joining us again. And just remember, we're always happy to offer one-off consultations. And if anybody's interested, there is a contact link in the chat, and also you can email SEO@globalreach.com.